Have you ever wondered why some women seem to effortlessly captivate the men they desire, while others struggle to maintain lasting attraction? The answer might lie deeper in the human psyche than you think. Today, we're diving into a powerful psychological concept that Carl Jung himself would have found fascinating, what I call the Mirage technique. This isn't about playing games or manipulation. Instead, it's about understanding the fundamental nature of human desire and how our unconscious minds work. Jung believed that attraction operates on levels far deeper than conscious awareness, and modern psychology has proven him right time and time again. The Mirage technique draws its name from that fascinating phenomenon we see in desserts, something that appears tantalizingly close, yet maintains its allure precisely because it remains just out of reach. But here's the crucial difference. While a desert mirage is an illusion that disappoints, the psychological mirage we're discussing today creates genuine, lasting attraction. Before we dive deeper into this transformative approach, if you're ready to unlock the psychological secrets that create irresistible attraction, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next in this series about feminine psychology and attraction. Jung introduced us to the concept of the anima and animus, the unconscious feminine and masculine aspects within each of us. When a man encounters a woman, his anima is activated, creating a powerful psychological dynamic. The Mirage technique works by understanding and working with this unconscious process, rather than against it. Think about the last time you desperately wanted something that seemed just slightly out of reach. Remember that feeling of anticipation, that electric energy, that constant mental focus? That's the psychological state we want to create in his mind, not through deprivation or cruelty, but through strategic presence and absence that mirrors the natural rhythms of desire. The beauty of this technique lies in its authenticity. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. Instead, you're learning to present your genuine self in a way that activates his deepest psychological drives. It's about becoming a living embodiment of what Jung called the eternal feminine, mysterious, nurturing, powerful, and ultimately irresistible. In the coming minutes, I'll break down exactly how this works, why it's so effective, and most importantly, how you can begin implementing it immediately in your own relationships. To understand why the Mirage technique is so powerful, we need to explore what Jung called the transcendent function, the psychological process that bridges our conscious and unconscious minds. When a man experiences attraction, it's rarely just about what he sees on the surface. His unconscious is constantly processing symbols, archetypes, and emotional patterns that you're projecting. The mistake most women make is trying to be constantly available, constantly present, constantly reassuring. While this might seem loving and supportive, it actually works against the natural psychology of desire. Jung observed that tension between opposites, what he called enantiodromia, is essential for psychological energy and growth. The same principle applies to romantic attraction. Think of desire as a flame. A flame needs both fuel and air to burn brightly. If you smother it with too much fuel, constant attention, immediate responses, predictable availability, you starve it of the oxygen it needs to grow. The Mirage technique teaches you how to provide that perfect balance of fuel and air. The first principle of the Mirage technique is what I call strategic mystique. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. Instead, it means maintaining layers of depth that he can continually discover. Jung wrote extensively about the anima as a man's unconscious image of the ideal woman. The anima is never fully knowable. She remains eternally fascinating because she embodies both the familiar and the mysterious. When you practice strategic mystique, you're allowing different aspects of your personality to emerge at different times. Maybe today, he sees your intellectual side during a deep conversation about philosophy. Next week, he discovers your playful, almost childlike wonder when you're both exploring a new part of the city. The following month, he witnesses your fierce protective instincts when you're caring for a friend in need. Each revelation should feel like he's uncovering a hidden treasure, not like you're performing for his attention. The key is authenticity within mystery. These aren't fake personas you're adopting. They're genuine facets of who you are, revealed with intentional timing. The second principle builds on this foundation: rhythmic presence. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, creating different energies throughout its cycle, your emotional and physical availability should have its own natural rhythm. This isn't about playing hard to get in a manipulative sense. Instead, it's about honoring your own natural cycles of energy, creativity, and social engagement. Some days, you might be completely present and engaged with him. Other days, you might be absorbed in your own projects, goals, or friendships. This natural ebb and flow creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful drivers of sustained interest and attachment. Now let's explore the third principle of the Mirage technique: emotional anchoring. Jung believed that our deepest connections are formed through what he called feeling-toned complexes, emotional experiences that become permanently embedded in our psyche. When you master emotional anchoring, you become associated with his most positive emotional states. This goes far beyond just making him happy. Anyone can make someone smile for a moment. Emotional anchoring means you become linked to his sense of personal growth, adventure, peace, and self-discovery. You want him to associate you with the feeling of becoming his best self. Here's how this works in practice. Instead of always being the person who soothes his stress, sometimes be the person who inspires him to pursue that creative project he's been putting off. Rather than always being his comfort zone, occasionally be the one who gently challenges him to grow. You become not just a source of pleasure, but a catalyst for his personal evolution. Jung wrote about the anima as a guide to the unconscious. When you embody this archetype, you're not just a romantic partner. You become a gateway to parts of himself he didn't know existed. This is incredibly powerful because it taps into his deepest psychological drives for growth and self-actualization. The fourth principle is narrative mystery. Every person lives their life as a story, and Jung emphasized how important it is for that story to feel meaningful and engaging. Most relationships fall into predictable patterns that make the story boring. The Mirage technique keeps the narrative alive and evolving. Think about the most compelling novels you've ever read. They don't reveal everything about the main character in the first chapter. Instead, they slowly unveil layers of complexity, surprising the reader with new depths and contradictions that make perfect sense in hindsight. You want to be that kind of character in his life story. This means having genuine interests, goals, and experiences that exist independently of your relationship. When he asks what you did today, your answer shouldn't always revolve around work and waiting for his text. Maybe you spent the afternoon learning watercolor painting, or you had a fascinating conversation with an elderly neighbor about her travels in the 1960s. Or you discovered a new hiking trail that made you think about the nature of solitude. These experiences add richness to your personal narrative. They give you interesting things to share, but more importantly, they demonstrate that you're living a full, engaging life. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your authentic self, is one of life's primary drives. When you're clearly on your own journey of self-discovery, you become infinitely more attractive because you embody this fundamental human drive. The fifth principle of the Mirage technique is what Jung would have recognized as shadow integration. Every person has aspects of themselves they've rejected or suppressed, their shadow self. Most people in relationships try to present only their acceptable qualities, but this creates a flat, unrealistic persona that ultimately becomes boring. The woman who truly captivates a man is one who has integrated her shadow in healthy ways. This doesn't mean being destructive or negative, Instead, it means owning your full emotional spectrum. You can be gentle and fierce, nurturing and independent, supportive and challenging. You're not afraid to disagree with him when you genuinely see things differently, and you're not trying to be the perfect girlfriend who never has needs or opinions. Jung observed that we're often most attracted to people who embody the qualities we've disowned in ourselves. If he's always the responsible one, he might be deeply drawn to your spontaneous spirit. If he tends to be overly logical, your emotional intelligence and intuition become magnetic to him. The key is expressing these qualities authentically, not performing them for his attention. Now let's discuss the practical application of these principles. The Mirage technique isn't about following a rigid set of rules. Instead, it's about understanding the psychological dynamics and then responding intuitively to each unique situation and person. Start by observing the natural rhythms of your own energy and interest. When do you feel most creative and inspired? When do you need solitude to recharge? When are you naturally more social and outgoing? Honor these rhythms instead of forcing yourself to be constantly available just because you're in a relationship. Next, pay attention to his psychological patterns. What lights him up? What challenges him in positive ways? What makes him feel most alive and engaged? You want to become associated with these peak experiences in his life, not through manipulation, but by genuinely sharing in activities and conversations that bring out his best self. Communication becomes crucial here. The Mirage technique requires you to be more intentional about how and when you connect. Instead of constant texting throughout the day, you might have fewer but more meaningful conversations. Quality over quantity becomes your guiding principle. When you do connect, bring your full presence. Put away distractions and really listen. Share something genuine about your own experiences and thoughts. Ask questions that go beyond surface level. Make each interaction memorable by being fully engaged, rather than just going through the motions of staying in touch. Remember, the goal isn't to make him chase you out of insecurity or fear of loss. The goal is to make him choose you repeatedly, because being with you enhances his life in ways that feel both exciting and deeply fulfilling. Let's talk about the most common mistakes women make when trying to create attraction, and how the Mirage technique helps you avoid them. The first mistake is what I call psychological suffocation, trying to meet his every need and be his everything. This might seem loving, but it actually prevents him from experiencing the natural longing that feeds desire. Jung understood that psychological tension is essential for growth and engagement. When you remove all mystery, all challenge, all independence from the equation, you eliminate the very forces that create lasting attraction. The Mirage technique teaches you to be generous with your love while maintaining your own psychological space. The second mistake is emotional fusion, losing yourself in the relationship to the point where you have no separate identity. Jung wrote extensively about the dangers of losing individuation in relationships. When you become an extension of your partner, rather than a distinct individual, you cease to be interesting or inspiring to him on a deep level. Think about it this way. If he can predict your every reaction, opinion, and choice, where's the excitement? Where's the discovery? The Mirage technique keeps you firmly rooted in your own journey of self-development, which means you're constantly evolving and revealing new facets of yourself. The third mistake is validation seeking, constantly looking for reassurance that he loves you, finds you attractive, or wants to be with you. This creates an exhausting dynamic where you're essentially asking him to be responsible for your self-esteem. Jung believed that true confidence comes from within, through the process of individuation and self-acceptance. When you master the Mirage technique, you don't need constant validation because you're secure in your own worth. This security is incredibly attractive because it signals emotional maturity and psychological health. It also frees him from the burden of constantly reassuring you, which allows him to focus on genuinely appreciating and desiring you. Now, let's address a crucial point. The Mirage technique only works when it comes from a place of genuine self-love and personal fulfillment. If you're using these principles to manipulate someone into loving you, or if you're coming from a place of insecurity and fear, the technique will backfire. Authentic attraction can't be faked. It has to be rooted in your genuine development as a person. Before we continue with the final practical steps, I want to make sure you're getting all the insights from this channel. If you're finding value in this deep dive into feminine psychology and attraction, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're building a community of women who understand that true attraction comes from psychological depth, not surface-level tactics. The transformation you can create with these principles extends far beyond just romantic relationships. You'll find that people in general are more drawn to your energy, more interested in your perspectives, and more eager to spend time with you. Let's conclude with 3 immediate action steps you can take to begin implementing the Mirage technique today. These aren't dramatic changes that will shock your partner or disrupt your relationship. Instead, they're subtle shifts that will gradually enhance the psychological dynamics between you. First, create what I call anticipation gaps in your communication. Instead of responding to his texts immediately every time, allow some natural delays that mirror your actual life rhythm. If you're at work, focus on work. If you're with friends, be present with them. When you do respond, make it thoughtful and engaging. This creates a natural ebb and flow that keeps him mentally engaged with you, even when you're not physically present. Second, develop what Jung would call your autonomous interests, activities, goals, and passions that belong entirely to you. This week, choose one thing you've always wanted to explore and take a concrete step toward it. Maybe it's signing up for that photography class, starting that novel you've always planned to write, or learning a new language. The key is that this pursuit genuinely excites you, independent of how he might react to it. Third, practice selective vulnerability. Instead of sharing every thought and feeling as it occurs to you, become more intentional about emotional intimacy. Choose moments of genuine connection to reveal deeper parts of yourself. This doesn't mean being dishonest or withholding important information. It means understanding that intimacy is more powerful when it's not constant, but instead emerges naturally during meaningful moments. The most beautiful aspect of the Mirage technique is that it doesn't require you to become someone you're not. You're not putting on an act or playing games. You're simply learning to present your authentic self in a way that honors both your complexity and his psychological needs for growth and discovery. Jung believed that the healthiest relationships occur between 2 individuated people, individuals who are whole in themselves and choose to share their lives together rather than complete each other. The Mirage technique helps you embody this principle by maintaining your own psychological wholeness while creating the conditions for deep, lasting attraction. Remember, lasting desire isn't about perfection or constant availability. It's about being a fully realized human being who brings richness, mystery, and genuine growth to someone's life. When you master these principles, you become not just attractive, but truly magnetic, drawing people toward the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. The journey of implementing the Mirage technique is really a journey of becoming your most empowered, integrated self. And that transformation will benefit every area of your life, not just your romantic relationships. You'll find yourself more confident in career situations, more interesting to friends and family, and most importantly, more satisfied with who you are as an individual. Start with these 3 steps. Be patient with the process and trust in the profound psychological principles that make this technique so effective.